So, Demon Hunter, new class. Lots of people waiting for it for years now. But I see the lore point of making them just blood elves and night elves. But in fact, actually right now, the horde players are mostly blood elf, at least at my server, and it will be more blood elves right now. I literally see all the orcs dying in Orgrimmar. Did you think about that before doing so?
I mean, obviously we think about it, but I mean, the more important thing is that we stay true to what what feels right for the Warcraft universe, and it feels right in this scenario for it to be night elves and blood elves, since you're part of that Illidari force from the Burning Crusade, essentially. So. Of course, we would love for players to play all kinds of different races, and I'm sure we will still have trolls and we'll still have orcs, and people will still play them, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really break the game if there are more blood elves.
And night elves.
Yeah.
Oh man. Regarding the Demon Hunter, he wears leather, I read. But why leather? Now we have 4 classes wearing leather and only 2 classes wearing chain. Why?
Well, because again, we're doing what feels right for the class. Like you look at the kind of image like that of Illidan, and what the Illidari tended to look like, and male just isn't really the right look for them. And at the end of the day, in gameplay terms, it really isn't a significant issue anymore. In that. Overwhelmingly, when you do group content, like in a dungeon finder, or raid finder, or even a pickup group raid now, people use personal loot. And in personal loot, it really doesn't matter if you're leather and I'm leather. It doesn't affect each other's chances of getting loot. And then even in the group loot case, that's usually only used by raids that are a guild playing together. And in that case, it doesn't matter. It's more about the set pieces for all of the main slots. Obviously, ring, necklace, trinket. Those aren't any specific armor type. And then so at that point, you're only talking about like bracer, boots, and belt. Not really a big deal to have that overlap.
Okay, good point. Regarding loot, with artifact weapons, you have a whole slot that is pre-definition throughout the whole expansion. Isn't it a problem that when I go around in the expansion, I never will actually find a cool weapon in a raid?
That would be a problem, but I think part of what we didn't talk about yesterday with the system is that the artifact, in addition to having traits that you unlock by spending artifact power, also has a number of relic slots. And these relics are things that you can socket into the artifact that are what determine and increase its raw power and its stats. So the DPS of the weapon, or the amount of spell power on a caster weapon, or the amount of strength or stamina that you get from it. The relics will also have some interactions that modify and improve particular artifact traits. And these relics are what will be rewarded from traditional sources of loot, such as completing a major quest line, killing a dungeon boss, or killing a raid boss. And so you'll get that moment of a big weapon upgrade. And of course, in terms of the weapon itself, you can visually customize it, and you'll have a lot of chance for progression on that front in terms of what your sword or mace or spear or whatever it is looks like over the course of the expansion.
Cool. That would be my next question. I think you didn't release the artifact weapons for demon hunters yesterday. Can we know what they will get?
They are glaives, and actually, if you go back and look at the character creation screen where we showed different demon hunters wielding different glaives, some of those are the artifact glaives.
Right? Ah, cool. So we already saw them. Awesome.
What about priests?
Priests will have artifact weapons. Yeah. Is there a specific question?
Something looking like benediction or anathema or something like that?
So we think we have weapons that are much cooler than those. And we can't wait to share what priests are going to get, hopefully in the near future.
Regarding other classes, the class halls for all classes. I didn't really get how they work. They seem like a Garrison 2.0 with a cool little team, but also the community hub for all my Warlocks. And I didn't really get how this works. Does it work faction over brings you?
So they're really very different than garrisons. There are more ways in which they're different than there are in which they're the same. Ian, you can explain a lot about them.
I mean, so unlike the garrison, which was sort of your own personal base that you were building up, you were choosing what structures to build and getting benefits from doing that. The Order Hall is a shared space that you are basically inheriting, right? This is the home of the Order of the Silver Hand, or the secret rogues meeting place in the sewers beneath Dalaran. And there you'll see players of both factions. It's a class-centric thing. The differences may be expressed in different ways visually throughout the Order Hall. So, for example, in the catacombs beneath Light's Hope Chapel, the Blood Elf Paladins may be in a different section from the Sunwalkers, who in turn may be in a different section from the humans and dwarves, who have the more traditional Paladin vibe to them. And then beyond that, this is going to be a place that you return to interact with your champions, to upgrade your artifact through a forge. And the champion system is very different in terms of some of its goals and the way it's going to work in terms of interacting with the world than what followers and missions were in Draenor. We think that, the fantasy in Draenor was one of raising an army, of collecting dozens of followers, and you were constantly sending them out, and you were supposed to feel like a leader. Here, it's you are the leader of your class order, but you have a smaller number of elite heroes by your side. And we want them to complement and enhance your own personal gameplay rather than at times competing with it, which is what we saw with some of the Draenor follower systems. So instead of just going off, doing a mission and bringing you back loot, a champion might go off, do a mission that is a scouting mission where they discover a hidden treasure or a powerful enemy that you can then go out and defeat. Or you can have them patrolling and stationed in a zone, and then when you go out and do an outdoor objective in that zone, they'll be able to assist you, either increasing your rewards or increasing your power. So things along those lines.
But how can I interact with, let's say, my Warlock player buddies in the class hall?
You can't in the class.
It's...
Unless they're Warlocks too.
Oh, okay, then I'm sorry.
Maybe we misunderstand the question. So, I mean, the idea in the class hall, it's only people of that class are able to get in. It is a shared space, so it's like all paladins, Horde and Alliance will be in Light's Hope Chapel, but a Warlock who wanted to enter couldn't.
No, that's the question. If I, as a Warlock, go onto my Warlock hub, and there are lots of my Warlock player buddies, we are all a big group of Warlocks, what can we do together in this class hall?
So I think some of that
Same
is...
thing you can do in Dalaran.
So...
Well, actually, yeah, exactly. So some in Voidwalkers. Certainly, it does not duplicate the functionality of cities from the standpoint that there's no auction house, there's no bank in the Order Hall. But you can socialize in the exact same way you would in any other outdoor world location or indoor world location in the world, which is really just kind of that sense of having other people around. Trade stuff, talk, whatever.
So it's like, from a social aspect, like the garrison, but with people, and I'm not so lonely.
Yeah.
Cool. Regarding the real main hub, Dalaran, what will happen to the old Dalaran in Wrath of the Lich King? Will it possibly disappear, or is it just a time problem?
Really, we view any given expansion as a kind of point in time in Warcraft history, right? So obviously, Dalaran, from a story standpoint, will have moved to the Broken Isles. But from an actual gameplay standpoint, if you're leveling up from level 70 to 80 in Northrend, Dalaran is there. But granted, it's the Northrend version of Dalaran, not the one that is modified and slightly different because of the story evolution that's taken place for the Broken Isles.
Okay. One last point to the artifact weapons. A colleague of mine plays a hunter, and he saw that the artifact weapon for the survival hunter is a spear. Is the survival hunter the new melee class for the hunters?
In short, yes. So I think that's one of the things we've been doing really with our class changes. We want to focus on the identity of each spec and the fantasy of playing that spec, and also where possible differentiating specs from each other that over the years have sometimes blurred together. I think on the hunter side, survival and marksmanship have often really struggled for identity. Beastmaster was kind of unique and stood alone with the focus on the pet, and they were clearly the master of their pet. But survival and marks, like survival maybe had a few more magical shots, and marks didn't. This is really going in a much different direction there. So what we're focusing on is having survival as a melee range hunter that wields, in this case, a spear as their artifact weapon, fighting alongside their pet, right? Think Rexar wielding a melee weapon, fighting alongside Misha in melee range. The Beastmaster Hunter kind of remains most unchanged. They're the master of pets, they stand back at range, use their ranged weapon, and the Marksman Hunter actually fights without a pet from range. So what's currently the lone wolf option that you can talent into will just become something that is inherent to the Marks spec. So then you have, the Marks petless ranged, BM pet plus ranged, and survival melee plus pet as clear distinctions in clearly different fields.
Awesome. My colleague will cry and be happy. Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that the artifacts weapon, I will get them right after the Broken Shores. So that maybe around level 102 or so. How much of a class quest in there? Because since the last Warlock quest, which was really cool in Mists of Pandaria, the people always wanted class quests. How much of a class quest is in the artifacts?
It's not something on that scale. I mean, the Green Fire quest for Warlocks and Mists was designed to be something that was sort of this elite, difficult chase goal that you had to, farm a very rare item for and then proceed through a lengthy chain, because it was supposed to be something that was prestigious and, almost impossible to get. Whereas the artifact is something that's essential. It's like a main part of your storyline, kind of like founding a garrison is the first thing that you do when you set foot on Draenor. Getting your artifact is the first thing that you need to do, really, to have a chance against the Legion. So it is a class-specific, spec-specific quest, and will tell you the story of the weapon that you're about to wield, as well as some other lore, and hopefully reinforce your fantasy playing that class in the process. And it also gives us some opportunity to further develop class-specific storylines down the line. But we wouldn't want to, even if we, could put, a week-long quest line before you can actually get your artifact and use it in the rest of the world, when it's something that you actually need.
Regarding specs, Demon Hunters only have 2 of them. And you said it would water down what the class means. But if you have a class like the Hunter or the Rogue, they have 3 specs all doing damage. What was the problem with the Demon Hunter there?
Well, the problem with the Demon Hunter, I mean, in some cases you could argue that, if we could go back in time, we would consider not have doing that many specs for those classes, right? Because there wasn't, we've really struggled over the years to develop distinct fantasies for them. We still struggle with the Rogue to really differentiate assassination versus subtlety versus combat. So we're looking at that problem now and thinking about the Demon Hunter and what they represent, what it feels natural for them to be, and we found that there were some kind of mutually exclusive problems. For example, we could make another DPS spec of the Demon Hunter that felt very different by making it like a ranged spec, right? It would feel very different, but it wouldn't feel like a Demon Hunter anymore, right? Illidan with glaives, that kind of feel. The Illidari. Or we could go the direction of having it feel like a Demon Hunter, but it really wouldn't be all that different. It would just be kind of marginally different. So we felt like, why split that up? Why not take all the cool ideas that we do have and just concentrate them into the specs that we do have, rather than water it down? It just felt like the better choice.
If you do so, and if you also say, okay, let's make this Hunter spec the melee spec, can we expect more of such big changes maybe for the Demon Warlock,
Yes.
who always has a place between the burst damage and the dot damage? Can maybe Demon Warlock be the next melee caster?
That is a great example. We're not going to go in the melee direction with them, but we actually are pretty significantly overhauling what the spec is about. I think the Demonology Warlock going forward is going to be more about summoning and controlling and being the master of many demons. That is what they focus in, rather than transforming into a demon. That's kind of going back to their roots from the very beginning of the class. Back in the pre-revamp old talent trees, all the Demonology Warlock talents were bonuses to pet damage and pet health and the ability to summon a Felguard that was unique to Demonology. And over the years, we kind of drifted away from that, and the spec lost that focus and often would actually sacrifice their pet and run around without one at all, and it just became about turning into a demon. So we're really backing off from that a lot, and they are going to be the Warlock that depends most on their pets and is, uses pets most often. Whereas Affliction is still about decay and kind of rotting you with a lot of dots, and destruction is about big bursts of damage, bolts of fire, and explosions, things along those lines. I think, where possible, like I said earlier, we're really trying to focus in on individual spec and class fantasies. At the same time, we don't take a complete revamp like that lightly. We know that it's, potentially very jarring for someone who comes back. They're used to playing a spec a certain type of way, and it's completely different. So we think we're reserving that, and I wouldn't expect that type of treatment like we're doing for the Survival Hunter or the Demonology Warlock for very many specs. It's something that we're doing where we feel like there is a specific problem or a particular weakness in spec identity, and we think we have an exciting idea that in many ways kind of goes back to the roots of those specs.
So long short question there. Priest. Only a class with 2 healing specs, and one focuses on direct heal and one focuses on shield. Are you taking some changes there also, or do you just say one shield, one direct heal?
Yes, actually. We're actually going to be focusing the Discipline Priest to be much more of an offensive healer. So we're going to kind of take another spin at the Atonement mechanic and really make the class a lot more about using Atonement. They will still have some heals, they still have Power Word Shield, but the way they're going to sustain their healing is actually going to be by doing DPS. So they're really going to be kind of more like a, 50% damage, 50% heal kind of class spec, whereas Holy is going to be all about healing.
I think a couple of additions there. Atonement, I think we want to make it a bit more interactive mechanic. In the past, I think when Atonement was really popular for Disc Priests, you would just spam Smite and Holy Fire all fight long, and the healing was all smart. That wasn't super deep or interactive. We're imagining more gameplay where you throw out some single target heals. Think of it as like an offensive beacon for Paladins, where you throw out a single target heal on someone and they have a buff on them. And then next time you smite, the people that have that buff on them are also going to get your healing. But you need to periodically refresh those buffs, so you're thinking about who you want to get the benefit of your healing and making active decisions as you go. It also solves a problem that's existed for a while with the absorb-heavy nature of Discipline Priests. I think we've really tried to tune around that for a while, and not to very great success. I mean, it's a little bit better than it was in Mists, but it's still not great. Having a spec whose entire niche and entire playstyle is about absorbs, that often means that they're actively subtracting from the fun that other healers get to have. If you're a Resto Druid or you're a Shaman, you're all about, you want bars to empty so you can refill them, and that's what you do. The Disc Priest stops them from emptying in the first place, and so they often just make you have to sit back and do nothing, which can be a frustrating experience. So I think overall, that's another example of a place where there's a clear problem to solve, and we have an exciting direction that we really want to explore.
So when you talk about offensive healing, I play Mistweaver Monk. And really the problem on the Mistweaver Monk is you can do the Kung Fu stance and you can you can heal with fist weaving, but all you can do is really mana. I generate mana and then I go back to the normal heal again. Is there coming a real cool fist weaving that also makes me a good healer as a fist weaver?
Right. So that we have those lessons to incorporate into the way that we're approaching the Discipline Priest, and that'll weigh in on how we approach it. That's also kind of something that we want to solve for the monk too. So you can look forward to seeing exactly what we're doing on that front with more information.
Cool. Then you mentioned that you could tattoo your Demon Hunter, and the question for me, who definitely will not play a Demon Hunter because I will play Monk forever, can I tattoo my Monk too, or other classes? Is that something that is coming like the barbershop?
No. For now, it's going to stay on the Demon Hunter. It's something that makes the Demon Hunter very distinct and unique. Who knows about the future, but for now it feels like the right thing to do is to keep it as a Demon Hunter only thing.
Cool. Thank you very much.